At 82, I've gained much wisdom about life, but there's one choice I profoundly regret: relocating to a senior care institution. Initially, it appeared to be the sensible option. My relatives encouraged it, promising I'd receive comprehensive support and comfort. I took them at their word. However, upon arriving, I discovered the truth differed greatly from my expectations. Many of you may be contemplating this path, whether for yourself or a family member. Perhaps you view it as the most secure alternative, or you've been convinced it will simplify matters. Before proceeding, I want to share 6 crucial insights I wish I'd known beforehand, because residing in such a facility doesn't just offer convenience, it fundamentally alters your existence. Once you enter, leaving proves far more complicated than anticipated. Stay with me through this discussion, as some revelations may surprise you. If someone you know is considering this option, this perspective may prove invaluable before they make this life-altering selection. Let's begin. First, regret: relinquishing my self-determination. The most jarring realization after transitioning to the facility wasn't the compact living space, regimented meal schedules, or unfamiliar surroundings. It was understanding I'd surrendered authority over my daily life. Previously, I maintained complete autonomy over my routines: when to wake, dine, and structure my day. I could stroll outdoors at will, prepare my meals, or relax in my favorite reading chair. Within the institution, I quickly learned my time was no longer mine to control. Every aspect followed an imposed regimen. Breakfast arrived at fixed hours, regardless of appetite. Lights were extinguished at predetermined times, whether I felt tired or not. Desiring fresh air? Permission might be required, often necessitating staff availability. Basic decisions like wardrobe selection or menu preferences began feeling like granted privileges rather than inherent rights. I vividly recall my first week, awakening in an unfamiliar bed. As I reached for my current novel, the stark reality struck me. This impersonal space wasn't home. My cherished books, comfortable furnishings, and personal mementos accumulated over decades were absent. In their place stood sterile walls and institutional furniture. The unsettling awareness dawned: I'd lost governance over my existence. The cruelest truth: once autonomy is surrendered, reclaiming it becomes nearly impossible. You adapt from necessity. You stop questioning meal selections. You cease requesting unscheduled walks. You mold yourself to their system, but in doing so, your identity gradually erodes. If considering institutional care, ask yourself, are you prepared to sacrifice the small freedoms that make life distinctly yours? Their absence may leave a void deeper than imagined. Second, regret: the pain of being overlooked. Among the harshest realities of institutional living is witnessing how life continues uninterrupted beyond the facility walls. Initially, my family vowed frequent visits. Initially, they honored this commitment: my daughter weekly, grandchildren on weekends. Temporarily, I maintained connections to my former life. As months passed, visits dwindled. Phone calls replaced personal interactions. Grandchildren became occupied with education and careers. Holidays proved particularly difficult. Promised visits often canceled last minute. I found myself joining other residents in the common area, all of us gazing expectantly at the entrance, hoping today might bring a visitor. This wasn't from diminished affection, merely life's inevitable progression. When you're no longer part of daily routines, people naturally assume you're content, adjusted, requiring less attention. The painful truth: the longer you remain institutionalized, the easier you become to forget. One evening, holding my phone debating whether to call my son, I hesitated, unwilling to impose or remind him of my lonely vigil. Setting the phone down, the devastating realization struck: my life had become an endless wait for inclusion in others' lives. If contemplating this transition, ask, are you ready for this profound isolation? Because physical separation often leads to emotional distance, the erosion regardless of familial life. I entered the facility believing I was merely changing residences. I failed to recognize I was abandoning my reason for living. At home, I had responsibilities sustaining me: houseplants needing care, coffee rituals, maintaining my space. These small acts gave meaning to my days. Within the institution, these purposeful activities vanished. Meals appeared prepared. Cleaning occurred magically. Even my plants were left behind. Initially, I welcomed the relief from chores, but weeks later, I recognized something vital was missing. Days stretched endlessly with nothing but waiting. Other residents mirrored this decline. Once vibrant individuals now sat motionless, watching clocks. George, an 84-year-old retired carpenter, exemplified this tragedy. His skilled hands, once constantly crafting, now lay idle. I feel worthless, he confessed one day, articulating what we all felt. When you lose activities that demand your care, life loses dimension. Mental acuity fades, physical abilities follow, until you become just another occupant in a place where time passes, but nothing truly changes. If considering this path, ask, what gives your life significance? Because within these walls, maintaining purpose becomes an active battle against institutional inertia. Fourth regret, accelerated physical decline. Pre-transition, I maintained reasonable independence, preparing meals, walking regularly, performing light chores. These activities sustained my physical health. The facility's convenience initially seemed beneficial. Meals delivered, chores eliminated, assistance always available. However, I failed to recognize the insidious consequence. Reduced activity weakened me alarmingly quickly. Muscles I'd maintained for decades atrophied within months. Simple actions like rising from chairs became labored. This phenomenon wasn't unique to me. I witnessed mobile residents transition to walkers, then wheelchairs with startling rapidity. Alice, a spirited 81-year-old upon arrival, initially walked daily despite her age. Within months, she required a walker, then wheelchair. "I've aged 10 years in months," she remarked, a sentiment we all understood. When movement becomes optional, capability disappears. Institutional efficiency, while well-intentioned, often hastens physical deterioration. Had I understood this, I'd have fought harder to maintain my independence. If contemplating this change, ask, will you retain motivation to stay active when everything encourages passivity? Regaining lost strength proves far harder than maintaining it. Fifth regret, the stripping of privacy and dignity. I underestimated how profoundly institutional living would invade my personal boundaries. At home, solitude was mine whenever desired. Within the facility, privacy became a rare commodity. Constant staff entries, scheduled checks, shared spaces offering no true sanctuary. Even basic functions like bathing or using restrooms often required assistance. While staff performed their duties professionally, accepting help with intimate tasks proved humbling. Menu options were fixed. No substitutions for disliked items. Roommates, when assigned, created additional challenges. Some disruptive or cognitively impaired, making proves particularly devastating. Being addressed like a child, following schedules you didn't create, feeling less like an individual and more like a case number. If considering this option, ask, are you prepared to sacrifice lifelong privacy and self-determination? These losses often prove more damaging than physical limitations. Sixth regret, the invisible barriers to leaving. I entered believing I could leave any time. Reality proved otherwise. Initially, returning home seemed simple. However, my house stood empty. My children had begun redistributing possessions, and my physical capabilities had diminished during institutionalization. When I mentioned leaving, concerns about safety and independence arose. Other residents shared similar experiences. What began as temporary stays became permanent when homes were sold or savings depleted. The institutional environment creates invisible barriers, physical, financial, psychological, making departure increasingly difficult over time. This crucial reality often goes unmentioned. While entry appears reversible, exit frequently proves impossible. The facility gradually becomes your entire world, while your former life fades into memory. If contemplating this decision, ask, are you prepared for the possibility that this choice may be permanent, regardless of initial intentions? Concluding reflections. Aging itself isn't my regret. Rather, believing institutional care was my only option. I expected improved quality of life, but discovered an environment that systematically eroded my independence, dignity, purpose, and identity. Are all care facilities inadequate? Not universally. Some individuals truly require their services. However, before choosing this path, carefully consider what you'll sacrifice, because life afterward never resembles life before. Given another chance, I'd explore every alternative to preserve independence. In-home support, community programs, technological aids, I'd ensure institutionalization was absolutely necessary before surrendering my autonomy. If facing this decision, ask yourself, is this truly best for me, or merely the most convenient with all its autonomy and personal choices, is worth preserving as long as possible? Thank you for your time and consideration. Your experiences and thoughts matter. Feel free to share them below. If this perspective resonated with you, please engage with our channel for more meaningful discussions. We appreciate your support in helping others make informed life decisions.